I don't know how you're getting this podcast. It could be through iTunes. It could be off my website, www.matthewpmbigelow.com/Matty blog, or it could be on a various form of applications such as Laughable, Google Play, Stitcher. I don't know what. However, please like and subscribe it, however which way you are listening to this on your device at the moment. Or if you know a friend who's interested in art or subculture, you could hand it their way as well. This is a podcast that focuses on broadcasting Tokyo subculture, as I mentioned before, as well as being a freedom of speech zone. Being in Tokyo, I'm not really subjected to a lot of the sort of witch hunting that goes along in the United States right now, so you can kind of feel comfortable. A lot of people do feel comfortable when they sit down here and I say it's freedom of speech. Just be careful what you say because it's going to go up on the podcast. Thank you very much. Like and subscribe, motherfuckers. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Matty B Files, episode 89. Happy New Year. Hopefully everything's going all well. I'm back in Tokyo after spending a few weeks back in Canada. More on that on another podcast. There's a lot to process with that. So, let's get going here. I'm in the Yogi Kubo studio. This is the podcast that broadcasts Tokyo subculture, except today I'm going to be taking you down to Vancouver Island, where I did a podcast with a few musicians there. Casey Hingley, who runs the open mic at the Flying Canoe, and he also manages a Long and Macquade store for the Courtenay, the city of Courtenay, the beautiful city of Courtenay. And he also introduced a band called the Vogue Villains, who were featuring at his open mic there that night. More on that later. So everyone's talking about New Year's resolutions. I don't know if you have any or if you have any goals. I prefer to make them, even if I fail at them, because it's better than just going, I don't have any goals, it's stupid. Yeah, it's stupid. What isn't stupid? So I have some goals. Lose weight and exercise. This podcast, it's taken a lot of my time, and I used to be a lot thinner before starting this podcast. So I might podcast a bit less and lose some weight and do some exercise. Okay, I'm going to be recording songs this year. I have a lot of songs. And the older you get, the harder it is to find people with enough time to, play along with your passion projects. So I've been investing in microphones. I've been investing in some gear. I've been experiencing myself in the editing suite here with the computer. I figure I can record my own songs now. Woo! So I'll be recording my own songs. I want to take more real pictures, not with my camera, but with my DSLR. I have some, not too many, but just a little bit more, but, kick off the rust and get some photos done. I'm going to do a photo essay of some Tokyo architecture. Okay, and then less time on social media and read more. I did that last year, and I feel much better for it. Except recently, I used to hate Twitter. Now I kind of like it. I think it's hilarious. But anyways, so less social media and read more. Goals for the podcast. I might tone it down on the politics. It felt good being in Canada for a few weeks, toning it down and not really feeling the need to constantly update the podcast. So in the future, I'm going to try to do 2 a month, maybe 3, but the whole idea of doing 1 a week is too demanding on me at the moment, especially if I'm going to be in the studio recording songs. But these podcasts will be coming out with semi-regularity. I want to focus on getting this podcast, dream big, and if you fall short, well, then you did better than if you didn't dream at all. So I want this podcast to be a kind of a hub for musicians, either living in Tokyo or coming through Tokyo, not only musicians, but artists in general. So if you're an artist and you're coming to Tokyo, you can come on this podcast and you can talk about the scene where you're from, and we can talk about what it's like in Tokyo, Japan. And then if other people listen to your interview, they might like you and check you out. Or you might serve as a kind of a learning board for that person who might be going to where you are from. So today actually is kind of a interesting thing because there is a bit of a network of musicians growing along with this podcast. More on that later. So I want this podcast to be a hub for musicians and people who are creating things in a subculture. Remember, subculture is real culture. Mainstream art is usually a reflection of advertisers, which is fine and everything, but it's a lot easier to get your message across when it's diluted through a team of managers giving you hundreds of thousands of dollars. So yeah, let's get this going. And if you're a musician or an artist coming into town or a comedian who's in town in Tokyo from wherever you are, I'd love for you to be on this podcast, and let's keep this hub growing. It's sort of a Tokyo hub. There's a lot of English podcasts out there, but a lot of them tend to be for English education or kind of clickbaity kind of things, like almost like a vlogger or like, oh, what's your favorite sushi? Which is fine. But this is more of a philosophical, arts, cultural examination, and looking into process and influences and things like that. And name dropping so that your names can get out there. So there's very few podcasts like this in Tokyo. It's kind of there's a lot of them in the United States. This is kind of this podcast is a very fringe. It's fringe of the fringe of the fringe because it's focusing on it's English speaking underground art in Japan. So good thing for me, there's not a lot of competition. Bad thing for me, there's not a lot of demand. But anyways, we can have honest conversations and it's a free speech zone. Okay, so that's the goals. Hopefully you have some goals or some aims for this year. I drew a little Ninja Turtle head in my notebook, and it's smiling, and it has a speech bubble, and it says, I have goals, with an exclamation part. Boom. So there we go. Let's introduce the guest. Guest is KC Hingley. He is the host of the open mic at the Flying Canoe, as mentioned before. Now, I know this guy, KC Hingley. We knew each other in Victoria, but when I reached out to him for the podcast, I didn't know who he was because it was through the open mic Facebook page, right? We all hate Facebook, but it's probably the best way to reach out and contact people. So I contacted him and he contacted me back, and my name rang a bell from way back in the day, the Dizay in Victoria, BC, the early 2000s there. Long time ago now, but there was a thriving music scene at the time. Everybody had posters up on the telephone poles and people were going out at night to check out live shows. Really fun time. When I moved to Victoria, I saw the band posters on the telephone poles, and I thought, man, I want to do that. I want to put up posters on telephone poles and have people come to the shows. And they did, and it was a really good time. So this is how incestuous the scene is at the time, and how I think people in their mid-30s who grew up playing kind of real music, I mean like not DJ or not completely digital or synthetic. I know it sounds pretentious. It's a lot harder to play an acoustic instrument than it is to push buttons on a digital device. Let me tell you, I'm not saying that one art is better than the other. I'm just saying, real. Anyways, it was before this whole digital, iPhone thing happened, and even before a lot of the internet became totally accessible for streaming music and things like that. So KC Hingley met Jay Dunphy at Camosun College, and I met Jay Dunphy, and we started some groups together. Now, Jay Dunphy met KC Hingley at Camosun College, and with the Moonshine Revelers, which was a previous band of mine, featured guitarist Dave Chenery. Dave Chenery got married to Chelsea Wakeland for a while, and they had a child, and I had met Chelsea Wakeland at Camosun College as well. It's a community college in Victoria. And then Chelsea Wakeland did some guest vocals on Casey Hingley's CD, which is called Men Against the Sea. And she was featured on one of the songs, 10 More Songs About Movies, track 6, Television Light. If you like what you hear, you'll be able to click the link in the show notes to hear more. But this is just how crazy it is that Chelsea Wakeland is featured on this song by Casey Hingley. Casey Hingley met Jay Dunphy at Camosun College, where I had met Chelsea Wakeland, and I think Casey Hingley did some sound work for Jay Dunphy, and then it's just crazy. And I even did like play reading with Chelsea Wakeland in university. So I didn't even know I would be meeting this guy, and this is how integrated we were. Even though we haven't spoken for 11, 12 years, we had this kind of shared history, this garbled history, as you could tell by the way I was talking about it. It's kind of a strange path to analyze, but there we go, the crazy connections. So we're going to get into this, but before I do that, I want to describe to you what the Courtenay, the city of Courtenay, is on Vancouver Island. Vancouver Island is, of course, not Vancouver City, very different from Vancouver City. It's about an hour and a half way on ferry or 35 minutes by plane. To prop plane, which I took. It's an island of sheer beauty. They got mountains, they got glaciers, they got skiing, there's yachting and sailing and scuba diving. It's about 80 kilometers wide at its narrowest, and it's about 350 kilometers long. It's known for its First Nations history. It's known for art and hippies, but at the same time, logging. There's an incredible amount of money being poured in there at the moment, but you can imagine orcas swimming in the oceans, bald eagles flying above the treetops, otters swimming up the streams, the occasional bear sighting or cougar sighting, rich British architecture from the late 1800s, Victorian culture, a lot of tea, but at the same time, this new coffee thing coming up, and a very impressive new beer culture has been emerging as well. I'll get into my experiences on another Drink a Beer With Me episode. So you can kind of understand that, there's also a lot of drugs, that this is an island of beauty, and the people there are pretty laid back, and we get into it in this podcast, again, featuring Casey Hingley and the Vogue Villains. Thank you for listening to the introduction. Let's teleport now to the city of Courtenay. I got to give out co-producer credits and co-engineering credits to Casey Hingley for helping me out with some mics, and we'll also give co-producer credit to Jack Long, who is very much responsible for many of the things that go on at Long and Macquade. If you're interested in what either of these, if you're interested in what Casey Hingley has to say, you can check out more about him in the show notes. Just click the show notes, and there's some links in there. And you can always get some really nice gear at Long and Macquade if you find yourself in Victoria or somewhere on the Vancouver Island. Again, the links are in the show notes. The song you are hearing is Television Light off of the album 10 More Songs About Movies. Thank you for listening. Now let's transport from Ogikubo Studio in Tokyo, where I am indeed sitting on my tatami mats, and let's get into it, into Courtenay, B.C.
Today's location, the cameras roll and extras crowd into the shot. I wish you were mine. I tried my best, but it's the role of a lifetime I never got. Until we spent the night in the television light. You said, does it get better? I said, it might.
I read your script. I liked how you stole the lead from a character in your favorite book. I never told you that I read all your rough drafts and I saw everything that you took. And we spent the night in the television light. You said it might get better. I said good night.
Still, it's been a good life. I love Mia. I wouldn't have had it any other way. But there are times when suddenly you realize you're near the end or the beginning.
In your hotel room, we watched an old love picture that nobody cares about anymore. No protagonists, a sea of bayonets, and when the movie was over, we both wanted more. And we spent the night in the television light. You said, does it get better? I said, it might. But I lied, because it's better not to say when you feel empty inside.
All right, now we're podcasting.
Okay.
Yes. Casey Hingley, that's how you say it, right?
Casey Hingley, yep.
So can you please begin by introducing yourself?
So my name is Casey Hingley, and I live in Courtenay B.C, which is not far from British Columbia's capital, Victoria, B.C. Been a musician in Victoria for most of my life. Moved up here about 5 years ago, and now I'm a musician here as well as an employee manager of the local music store, Long&amp Macquade.
Right on. And we can thank them for a few things.
Yeah, we should give Jack Long co-production credit here on this one.
Okay,
Yeah, sure.
Jack Long.
He bought the building that we're sitting in.
We can give him that.
Yeah.
It's really easy to give credits. That's
Sure.
what I've realized
Yeah.
about having a podcast. Okay, and so you were a musician in Tokyo. No, sorry, Victoria.
Yes.
My head's in the wrong. So yeah.
Same ocean,
I live
different
in
landmass.
Tokyo. I lived in Victoria. My mind's a bit frayed at the moment. But
No problem.
what kind of music did you play in Victoria?
So in Victoria, I grew up there, and I was a singer and a songwriter, and did a lot of my own original bands for a number of years, and then eventually, turned to something that would get me paid. So I started a Pink Floyd tribute band, which I did with my best friend Josh and a bunch of other guys. And that band, Pigs, is still playing, but I unfortunately had to leave the band when I moved up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what were the years? When did you go to Victoria to play music, and when did you leave?
I grew up in Sydney, BC, which is actually a little bit north of Victoria. When I was 17 years old, I played my first gig at a Victoria bar, so that would have been 1997.
Okay,
Yeah.
just a couple years before me. I arrived in Victoria in '99.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you arrive from?
Comox.
Oh, that's right, of course.
Yeah, from Courtenay Comox.
So we've done a
area.
flipperoo.
Yes.
I'm a Victoria guy, and now I'm in Courtenay.
And I was a Comox Courtenay guy, and then I went to Victoria, then to Tokyo, and now I'm back here again.
Crazy.
What kind of music did you play in Victoria? You said the Pink Floyd stuff, but what about your originals?
Yeah, so I guess the longest standing band, we called it Antilles, and then eventually we changed the name to Men Against the Sea. We did release an album under the name Men Against the Sea, again with my best friend Josh Shepanowski, who also played in the Pink Floyd tribute band.
He also played with Jay Dunphy.
He has played with Jay Dunphy as
Yeah.
well, yeah. He's sort of my musical brother, and if I were to say I miss one thing about being in Victoria, that would be it, that I don't have that A, the meeting of the minds musically with Josh, and B, maybe the best guitar player I've met at full disposal. So
Yeah, he's
not
good.
to mention a great engineer and producer and songwriter in his own right.
He knows about tone, that's for sure.
He thinks about it a lot.
Yeah. And what kind of styles were you playing?
I guess you'd call it, well, we wanted to call it indie rock. We thought we were indie. We were never quite cool enough to be indie. I think we were quite influenced by folk music and classic rock, and we developed something out of that.
What type of folk music?
Well, I grew up listening to sort of the 60s folk. Bob Dylan is the main one, and then I moved a lot into the sort of country folk rock and roll movement of the 70s, the Emmylou Harrises and the Linda Ronstads of the world, and
Outlaw country?
outlaw country. Yeah, I've listened to a little bit of that, played a little bit of that, and in fact, I released a solo album as well under my own name called Nowheresville, which was definitely used a lot of the country influence.
Did you get a full band?
I did have a full band. Yeah, it was a put together band for the one album. I'm lucky in that although I'm not really friendly or outgoing, I seem to manage to find good musician friends. I think because musicians need friends as well, because there's a lot of them that aren't particularly outgoing or always happy, and so
We're good at sales.
yeah, good at sales. Good at valuing themselves. So when I say,
Yeah.
hey, do you want to come? I got my bedroom set up, and I got the next bedroom next to me set up. We're gonna come in. We're gonna do one take. You guys are all the best people I know. So let's get rolling.
Kind of like how like the government can exploit elementary school teachers based on their love of children. I feel like musicians exploit each other. Like there's no hope for this project, but it will be our own original music, and I have it all set up, and I'll pay for everything. And they're like, okay,
Yeah.
I guess I'll give 10 months of my time to that.
Yeah, and they got credit, right? They got credit for being on
Oh,
the album.
yeah.
It's written down that they were on the record.
Which says a lot because it's not like a gig where it comes and goes. I mean, you can get pumped up for a gig, but once it's gone, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And as well as teaching, you kind of feel like you're giving your part of yourself away without getting much back, except for a financial return. So
Yeah,
by pooling your creative resources together, you're able to make something completely original.
and recording is cool in that way too, especially if you're a part of a recording project that is going to be finished and is going to be presented to the world, because you'll always have it, and the formats change. You know, we can find these things on iTunes now, and we can actually go back and we were recording music before the days of too much internet involvement, whereas now it's, I guess, people's main way of listening to music. And in fact, I've just been thinking about getting some of this stuff onto iTunes, which it's not there yet, but I do have Men Against the Sea is on Bandcamp. So if you wanted to listen to our album, it's called 10 More Songs About Movies, and it's on Bandcamp under Men Against the Sea.
And that'll be in the show notes, so people can just click on the link in the show
Oh, cool.
notes.
Yeah,
and
I think I
that'll
sent
take
that to you. Yeah, perfect.
10 more songs in the sea. So I wanted to ask about publishing. When I left Canada for Japan, it was still CDs, and there was a bit of internet, but it was more like you would copy your CD and then you would put it onto your MP3 player.
Mm-hmm.
But since being back in Canada for the past week or so, I've really noticed that people don't care about CDs. They leave their CDs hanging around, and people really love having a Bluetooth connected phone to their car, because Canada is like a car driving society.
Do you know what I did today?
What did you do?
I threw out what I threw out today without even caring, because I knew I would never need this piece of physical media again. I threw out a CD of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon without even testing to see if it worked. Now, I do have the vinyl of it downstairs, which I did not throw away. So I've got that if I ever want my pure listening experience, but I will always have it at the push of a finger on my phone. So if I need a digital, a digitally compressed version, which is not my favorite way of listening to that kind of music anyway, it's available. So I just took it and tossed it because it was not where it was supposed to be.
And the jackets get grimy, and the CD
The jacket was
might
gone. I just found the
skip.
CD with a bunch of books, and
Yeah.
there it went.
That's what I noticed a lot I'm staying at my folks' place for Christmas season, and there's just CDs like tucked away here and there, and not even like oh, here's a CD. It's like forgotten about
Yeah.
media.
Yeah.
Like I think people pay better at care about their old tapes than they do about their old CDs. So how do you get your music these days?
I have Apple Music on my phone, and I use that almost exclusively.
You're all about streaming.
But I do have like I said, I have a record player, and I do listen to any music from before 1990, say. If I can get it on vinyl, if it's something I really want to listen to, I'll listen to it on vinyl. Because to me that's 100% listening experience. Whereas, the listening through my stereo for my phone is about 95%.
And how would you compare the listening experience from listening on via Apple streaming to a CD? I don't have Apple Music. I don't really stream music in my life.
Well, I think it's about the same. It's easier. The CDs don't skip. You don't have to look for them. You don't have to find the
You mean CDs skip?
CDs. Sorry, yeah. The phone doesn't skip.
Right.
The CDs would skip. The only thing I miss from the phone experience is liner notes, because I used to love that when I was a kid. I don't always know the names of songs anymore. I used to buy a record or a CD, open it up, and hope that there was a lot of information in the lyrics inside.
Yeah, that was a nice bonus, having the lyrics, and the font was big enough you could read them.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. But now,
yeah. But now, I mean, my life has changed as well, though. I am not the guy who I used to get on the bus from Sydney, BC, for an hour to go to Victoria to go to Lyle's place to buy whichever album was next on my list to purchase. And at this point in my life, I've heard enough music that it's hard to get excited about anything like that anymore. Unfortunately, that's just, I think, part of
I'm feeling
getting a little bit older. Although, not to say that I don't love listening to new music, I do. But yeah, it's a little bit easier to throw it away as well. If you hear it once and it doesn't pique your interest, you don't necessarily have to listen to it again. There's no investment in it. So, I might have given a new record, since I only had one new album by the time I got home, a couple of spins, 3 or 4 spins, before I decided I liked it or didn't like it. I'll give you a good example.
Great.
Roger Waters' "Amused to Death" came out in 1994, and I was really excited, being a Pink Floyd fan. Went and bought the CD, and brought it home, listened to it, and I didn't get it at all. His voice had changed. It was a lot deeper, had a lot of cracks in it. It was long. It had a different guitar player than what I was used to. It had Jeff Beck instead of David Gilmour, and it was just a totally different sound. Now, that album eventually grew on me and became what I think one of his better albums. His new album that's just come out, I gave it a quick listen and tossed it away. So who knows if I would get into it if I listen to it again. I will, because it's Roger. Give it a chance. But if it's someone other that I don't already invested in, then it may take a bit of time to get into, or I may never. Yeah.
I also think when we were in that late 90s period, you would wait for the next media to come, and you were kind of someone else was in control of the media. Mm-hmm. But now the user is in control of the media more so than ever. I can load up a YouTube video, skip to the middle, and then watch the next YouTube video. I can watch
for sure.
But I wouldn't be able to do that. I couldn't fast forward the radio, or I couldn't fast forward my week to watch Friends or something like that. So this on-demand streaming services is also affecting the way we digest it, where we don't really feel the need to know all of the lyrics and the producer and who was the guitarist on track 5 compared to track 7, all these different things.
Yeah, and there aren't any, I mean, I shouldn't say this, but it doesn't seem like there's any great bands anymore. There's solo artists. The groups that come out do tend to go solo faster. Everything's in a faster cycle. And the artists, although they've always been, are under more pressure to come out with things faster and faster and faster. So same thing with that, like release dates. They come and they're released onto the streaming services really quickly. So yeah,
I'm trying to reevaluate that. That's what next year is going to be a little bit about for me. Have you ever given any thought to like how much music has split in the past 20 to 30 years? Because whenever I go into like a Shoppers Drug Mart or a big box store, they're playing like this mainstream media. and it's so different from what the underground music scene is playing. Like in the mainstream media field, it's like computers on loops, not even that complex anymore, and like a chorus that just kind of repeats. But I don't really hear like, I remember in the late 90s going into bookshops and they would still be playing pop punk. And I would go to punk shows and there'd be like a pop punk band. But since that time, I really feel like underground music and mainstream music have just split off into two completely different worlds.
I'm a really big believer that it comes through in cycles. That say punk music was a response to rock and roll was a response to what was coming before, which was kind of a very polished 50s sound. Rock and roll came out with Buddy Holly doing smaller groups and a little bit more raw material. If you haven't listened to Peggy Sue by Buddy Holly lately, go back and listen to it. It's a fascinating recording. It sounds like a basement demo, and one of the most famous songs in the world. And then, of course, after the 70s and bands like the Eagles and Pink Floyd came through, and then disco, punk rock came out to sort of slap it in the face. Again, in the 90s with grunge, came out to slap it in the face. And although I think the mainstream is quicker to absorb it and redistribute it in a more polished way, I can see it coming back.
Scoop out its brains and buy it better jeans.
I think we're pretty close to, I think we're pretty close to some kind of musical revolution. At least I hope so. I'd love to see rock and roll get another a moment in the sun.
Rock and roll are just something a little bit different. Yeah, I think that the basement musicians need to reconsider how songs are structured, to be honest, because we have the riff, the verse, chorus, verse, it gets 2/4, or it breaks down to half speed in the middle, come back with the solo and get really loud at the end. I think it doesn't really matter how you apply that tune. It's kind of mirroring something that's been done before.
Yeah, well, for sure. It's an attitude. There's an attitude.
It's fun. It's fun as fuck. I love doing it. Don't get me wrong.
Someone's going to come out, a Kurt Cobain, who just can't be denied, right? Someone like that, or a Joey Ramone, who just has a different way of seeing the world, and that resonates and clicks with the listening public.
Okay. Do you have any teachers that come to mind when you think about your music? Like not like famous musician teachers, but just teachers.
I never had. Well, I had one guitar teacher a long time ago named Pat Faber, who was very good. He taught me the solo to Stairway to Heaven, and that was really nice. I didn't take a lot of lessons, but I've learned a lot from the people I've played with, and I think that's how I've gotten a lot better over the years. Josh would be one of them.
Camaraderie.
Yeah, camaraderie.
Or like you go and you play and someone kicks your ass. You're like, fuck, I gotta go home and get that part down.
Yeah, and I've never been a move your fingers fast kind of musician.
Me neither.
I'm a decent singer, and I think that's got me a long way, but I have a musical sensibility, and I think that's what's gotten me. But other people who are great musicians in both ways have taught me a few of those little licks, so now I can, I can move in a lot of circles, let's put it that way, and hopefully hold my own with some pretty solid musicians. I've done it before. Okay. Last year I played a gig with Russ Kunkel. You ever heard of Russ Kunkel?
No.
Oh man, he played for on albums as a session musician with Linda Ronstadt, Bob Dylan, Crosby, Stills, Nash, James Taylor. The list is endless. He's a legend, and he lives here part time in the Comox Valley.
Nice.
We went golfing with him once, and he said, "Hey, why don't we play a couple shows?" I said, "Well, since you mentioned it."
Whoa.
Yeah. So I got.
It's the golf course effect.
Yeah, it was. It was great, and I had a couple of local guys here, Anela Kahiamoe and John Mundy, who both of them are. Anela is from Hawaii, and John comes via Calgary and other places in Canada. Both of them top-rate musicians, guitar players, and we had a couple of good nights at the Roystown pub there in Royston.
In Royston.
Yeah, of all places, down in Royston.
You never know where the show's going to take place, you know?
That's where the offer was.
You never know.
That's where we played the gig, and Russ is American, and so he's not even allowed to make money here in Canada as a musician.
Yeah, unless he goes through a rigmarole.
He did it for the love of it, and we bought him a beer. So don't tell anyone.
Well, You know, it goes back to that thing we were talking about before. Sometimes you just want to get together with other musicians and play some fucking shows.
Yeah.
And if you like, by the time you're in your mid 30s, mid 40s, like you're already probably making money in some way or another. And it's just like, I can try to promote the shit out of this and make a couple of $100, or I could save all my time and make like 80 to 100. And yeah.
Yeah.
The times are changing, as we've
Yeah.
mentioned. So getting out there, but I'm sure people appreciate it. Any other influences? You were mentioning Pink Floyd.
Yeah, I mean, I'm influenced by a lot of nowadays. I'm influenced by a lot of modern country music. Believe it or not, that seems to be the new rock and roll.
Chris Stapleton.
I love Chris Stapleton. Was listening to him today.
Me too.
What a great singer.
And
He's one of
songwriter.
those guys, and songwriter. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he knows how to take a pre-written song and do it his way, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. I don't know if I would say he's an influence on me, but any good song that I hear, I will try to I will take that and sort of say, well, maybe we can make something with that sort of feel.
I've started listening to him in the past few months, and it's really given me an inspiration to go back to basics and keep it simple.
Yeah.
You don't
Oh, yeah.
need the studio production. You need the mics and the instruments and the musicians at that ground floor, and then you don't need much after it.
Yeah.
Of course, you need like EQ and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But when you listen to some of his older recordings, they're not really super high-end recordings, but I'm going to go back and listen to that because it's a kick-ass song with quality musicianship.
Yeah, he's got that recorded in a barn kind of sound.
Yeah.
My other favorite country artists right now are I think Miranda Lambert's most recent album was one of the best. It's called The Weight of These Wings. It should have been the best album of the year. And Eric Church is also an amazing. He's been around for a while, but what a great artist he is.
Cool. Do you ever experience flow state when you're playing music?
Explain.
Like you don't think about the music that you're playing and you're playing with other people and you're locking in?
Oh yeah.
Is that rare?
No, I think it's rare if you're playing unfamiliar material, but I think once you've gotten into a tune that you've played 100 times with people, I think it's pretty easy to get there. And that's, really, if you want to put on a great performance, you want to have played a song several times before you perform it to an audience, because then you can let go of what is the next chord. You can let go of how do I make my voice create this note. You can let go of all of it, and you can just do the song. Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that when you're just jamming with people and you for example, I play with this klezmer band in Tokyo called Dead Sea Dropouts.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just practicing a rhythm. And it was a rhythm to a song, but we weren't playing any melodies. Everyone was just playing the rhythm. And we were all playing this rhythm, which is like a da ba da 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 ba ba da ba. But then I hit the floor tom, and everybody switched at the same time to a da 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 with no cue. And there's 5 people in the room at the time. 5 people all suddenly switched to the exact same thing. And it wasn't with the song. It was like with a rehearsal pattern. And then on like a boom, we all switched to this separate pattern. Like how what are those bugs that glow in the dark? AIDS?
Glowworms?
No.
My 3-month-old son is a glowworm.
The glowworms. No, the fireflies.
Firefly, yeah.
Like all the fireflies sync up at night. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
kind of like that. So I wonder if there's like this instinctive thing with rhythm where you kind of just lock in after a while.
I think I think people that have played together, you can get into that jam state. I think any moderately accomplished musician will experience that with people when you're doing that sort of open jam thing. Everyone knows when to. Even when you're rehearsing songs and that and do something a little bit different. I've lots of times looked around the room and everyone goes, "Oh yeah, I felt that change. That was fine."
It's really strange, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of telepathy, but I mean, if music wasn't a bit of magic, it wouldn't be so popular. It's been around forever, and it's not going away. It changes, but it definitely brings out something extra.
Yeah, it usually happens with either people you're extremely comfortable with or people that you've played with for a long time. And it kind of like you get the same thing with hockey sometimes where everyone just kind of swirls around the puck.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's like, but to have like musical fitness doesn't mean you have to be in shape. You have to be in musical shape.
Well, those guys at the high level of sport operate faster than you can possibly imagine. You know, me who can't do that when I watch a hockey player batting a puck going 100 miles an hour out of the air and redirecting it to a different area of the net. I just think, wow, is the brain capable of working that fast? Well, it is, but it's on the level of instinct, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that point, because all the hours put in, and then all of a sudden it's,
Comes to light.
yeah.
It emerges. Um, okay, I have another. What's the life of a music store manager like in Comox Valley?
Busy.
Is it?
Yeah. I think I have it pretty good compared to some other retail management. They don't work me too hard. We've just got through Christmas, so I feel like I've been worked pretty hard, but I've got a bit of time coming off on January. Yeah, it's a whole other thing, and people do come in and they say, "Well, it must be nice to spend your days around instruments," and sure it is. You know, it's great. I love these instruments, and I love guitars, and I love microphones, and I love all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're surrounded by so many different things that can challenge the sounds,
Yeah.
you know?
On the other hand, my job is to sell them, and that does take away a little bit from it. So, but luckily I enjoy sales as well. So,
What's selling these days?
I think there's definitely a switch towards software-based things, MIDI controllers, MIDI keyboards, DJ. There's lots of DJ stuff going on. There's things that, you know, getting now to be sort of a middle-aged kind of guy like me doesn't understand, but I could be made to understand if I could be bothered. These little multicolored, see them? There's all multicolored buttons, and you press them, and you make little patterns.
Oh, yeah.
Ableton Live, and
I don't like them.
no,
Well, they sound good, but they sound electronic when you hear them live.
yeah,
Because I've seen that before where it's like there's a drummer and a bassist and one of those guys pushing the keyboards, but you can hear the background noise of the button of the mix.
oh really?
So you will hear like the bass sounding really pure and the drums, it might sound a little bit loud or something, but it sounds like somebody is in the same room pushing buttons, not necessarily playing with them. But yeah, I think it's because they don't have to learn how to play.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. I have to keep an open mind about these things because music, like I think music evolves, and I think there will be, like I said earlier, someone who will come and get rid of all that production for a little while, and then it'll get back to it. But you know, it is what it is, and that's how some of the highest selling music is being recorded these days, is being more or less produced in a studio with a singer singing over top of it, the Kanyes and the Taylor Swifts, and some of that stuff is really enjoyable.
Yeah, they write some good. There's songs that are written for them or that they write themselves can
Yeah.
be really good.
I'm going to play a Taylor Swift song tonight.
Good.
It's Ryan Adams' version of it.
Well, you're playing thank you, because I was just about to ask you.
Oh, I segued.
Well, yeah, because I was hoping to.
Do I get a co-writer credit?
No. Do you? So this is the open mic at the Flying Canoe,
Yeah, Thursday open mic at the Flying Canoe.
and what's this all about?
I started. It's been a long-standing tradition. The Thursday night open mic, Flying Canoe. It sort of stopped for a while, and I missed it, and so I went in and I talked to them, and I said, well, what about starting it again and doing it a little bit different? So since August, I've been running it, and what I'm doing different is every week I'm trying to find, and so far pretty successfully, a feature performer. So we've got the open mic from 9 to 11, and at 9:30 we've got a feature performer which plays a half an hour set. And I'm able to connect with all kinds of people. That's where my job comes in handy because boy, do I know a lot of musicians, and I tend to get into conversations with people and say, oh, well, hi, why don't you just come out to the jam? Why don't you come out, be a feature performer? So I give them a little bit of promo. I try to take as many photographs as I can on my kind of fancy camera, which I just remembered I forgot today. So too bad, Vogue Villains, but
iPhones will have to do.
iPhones will have to do. Yeah, and it's a good time.
Is there a charge to join?
No.
No. And do you have to sign up on a list, or is it first come, first serve?
There's a list. It hasn't ever been too much of an issue. Some people email me and say, "Oh, I want to play. Can I play at this time?" And I say, "Sure." It's not created any big conflicts yet so far. So
It's at the Flying. Is it every Thursday or
every
just
Thursday.
Every
yeah.
Thursday.
Every Thursday at the Flying Canoe, the Best Western Hotel.
In Courtenay,
Yeah.
BC.
That's right.
And they should contact Casey Hingley.
Casey Hingley, yeah.
Yeah,
There's a
see.
Facebook page, Thursday night open mic at the Flying Canoe, and you can email me there, or you can, if you creep my personal Facebook and send me a message, I might not respond. But Matt got me on the Facebook through the page, and
Here we are.
here we are
Podcasting.
Great.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about that?
Um,
Any kind of rules or regulations, or what kind of thing you hope for? Or is
I am-
anything okay?
I am hoping to
I have 2 double bass pedals,
Yeah.
and I have some sort of lighter fluid.
Well, you think open mic and you think one person with a guitar singing, but I'm trying to do just about anything musical. So if you have a hip hop act, if you're a DJ, I'd love to have all kinds of stuff come out.
So it's like an open mic variety show.
I guess so. There's
Yeah.
things that I would love to see and things that are in reality coming. But tonight we've got a band and that's fun.
Yeah.
I love bands.
And they're going to be on very shortly. We can talk about Jay after the band, actually.
Okay.
Because I really got to go pee. So can you introduce the band?
Sure. This week we're going to have Vogue Villains, and they happen to be able to come down and say a few words in the podcast as well. They're a band from Campbell River, and it's going to be great.
All right. Let's take a break and continue from there.
I want all the cryptozoology creatures to be real, but I just don't believe it.
I think they're
Same
all
with
real.
ghosts.
Ghosts are real. Ghosts of ghosts are real too.
Ghosts of ghosts.
You never know until you come across their paths.
Well, we're thinking instead of just being a band, we're gonna be a band who also like searches haunted houses and castles and shit like that. So we'll go there. We'll search for ghosts, and then we'll base our music based on the spirits and energy that we feel in these castles.
That's great. We are recording.
Oh,
With the Vogue Villains.
the Vogue Villains. Oh, we've started.
Yeah, from Campbell River.
Oh yes, we're definitely from Campbell River. A little bit further away from here, but there's a little bit more going on in
All right.
Courtenay.
Who do we got on the mics here? Let's go from.
Lucas.
What do you do, Lucas?
I play guitar and I sing.
My name's Andrew, and I play bass and sing.
Okay.
I think.
Do you? Is that what you do?
I'm just a drummer.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, did we
He
forget to
sings
unmute him?
too.
Yeah, we got to unmute.
Oh, I can hear me now.
There you go.
Oh, thank God.
You're on the mic.
Yeah, my name's Nate. I'm just a drummer.
Yeah,
working
he
on vocals. So
Yeah.
He's brand new.
Just
Beautiful
a
voice.
drummer, he says. What kind of music do you guys play?
Oh shit.
Yeah, that's a strange one. I always want to say it's kind of broad, but like alternative.
Alternative
really?
rock, but also like progressive rock.
Like, what are
Yeah.
your influences?
I'd say for me, like a lot of his Queens of the Stone Age.
What do you think of their new album?
I love
Oh
this.
yeah,
so
it's
good
I
awesome.
love it. It drives
Good.
me insane when people are saying like, "Oh, they don't sound like they used to." None of their albums ever did, and this album actually has lots of references to their old stuff. I loved it. It was too short. I wanted more.
Yeah. I like how compact it is as well. Like,
Yeah.
all of the songs, there's
Yeah.
no waste, and everything's like super tight. And
Yeah.
it's
And there's no filler, right? It's nine
Yeah.
really good tracks, not 13, and some of them are weird. It's 9, and they're all awesome, right?
Yeah.
And unique.
And
You
the
don't get
length of them,
confused.
like they're longer, but they don't feel too long. You know what I mean? Like they found a perfect way to lengthen them.
yeah. Have you
Keep
heard the
them
new? Have
exciting.
you heard the new
I
album?
have, yeah.
What do you think of the drummer?
It's the most solid drumming I've heard on one of their albums, actually. And
Yeah. Do you know
original,
that-
actually.
Do you know that second song with the clapping?
Yes. Yeah.
That's a track that he hits and then records at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
They
that
didn't add a clap
weird.
onto it. He was clapping
Yeah.
while playing all the
I
Yeah.
think it's a loop that he just like hits.
Yeah.
And it's like a metronome.
I read
and
that
he
too.
did the whole thing
John Theodore
while that was going on. Not missing the beat.
What a monster!
noticed
That's
that.
cool.
blows my mind.
All right, so you guys are like Queens of the Stone Age and
My biggest are Billy Talent and Mother.
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mother, who's local to Quadra and Campbell River and stuff like that. They're
Yeah.
in Vancouver now.
Okay.
Yeah, which is great influence. Yeah, I love it. It kind of got me writing music differently than I used to. Like when I first started playing, I just played a lot of metal, and like I love it, and I still do. But I didn't really branch out. And then when my teacher introduced me to this crazy band called Mother, I kind of realized what you could do with, well, what was possible with like one guitar and a few voices, and how you could really imagine things expanding and building and writing differently, and it just kind of opened up a lot of doors for me. A lot.
Cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Who's your influences, Nate?
I would say Nirvana.
Yeah.
And
Dave Grohl?
Dave Grohl, of course, but
Yeah.
even him as the Foo Fighters switched
Yeah.
guitar a bit there. But
I agree. Foo Fighters is big for me as well.
it made me realize, drummer, you shouldn't just be a drummer either. You should, just go for it. Find new instruments, try them out anyway.
Try all
So
of them.
he's given me that kind of inspiration for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you say that you think that John Theodore was the best drummer on the Queen's albums, but Dave Grohl also killed it on Songs for the Deaf.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
And what's the Campbell River scene like?
It's
Not big these
of
days.
there's a lot of really talented players in Campbell River. It's actually really crazy. There's a lot of people who are very unique in their own ways with writing. Like they're quirky. They each have their own sound. Like I know a lot of people who are just wicked. But as far as the music scene goes, like the public, music address, and having multiple stages and these venues, that it's quiet. There's lots of support. There's lots of people who want to make it happen, right?
A lot of people in the closet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Like there are a lot of really talented people playing. It doesn't mean they're necessarily going out and playing at a lot of places.
Okay.
Got a lot of friends that, like, if they just found the right people and stuff, like me, I've been playing for over a decade, but it took me all this time to find the right band, the right people who are dedicated and ready to play and build this music that we want to make together. And I've been in some great bands, but it was never like this.
Okay.
It's hard to find commitment.
Yeah, it is. And what kind of venues are typical in Campbell River?
Lots of
Pubs.
Pubs, bars.
Do you guys have a rock night on a Thursday at one place?
Oh, jams are popular all over Campbell River and the Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a Thursday jam actually in Campbell River at the Voodoo Lounge. Yeah, that's sort of like the big rock jam.
Is
They
it
have
still called the Voodoo Lounge?
I think so.
It's called the Voodoo Lounge.
No,
yeah.
it's
Trust me, it is. I was there like a month ago.
It is.
Okay.
Okay. It changes sometimes. It's confusing, but yeah,
It's
it's
had a
all
lot
other
of
stores.
names.
Yeah, but it's wicked. Yeah, he has a big stage set up, all sorts of backline and lighting. Like it's really crazy. And
Yeah.
then, I don't know any other regulars. Super Mario's.
Super Mario's, yeah. It used to be called Johnny's. They're pretty good. It's a tiny place. It's hard to get the right sound all the time, but we haven't played there with this formation. We should do that,
That'd be
test
fun.
it out.
Cool.
It's a good place, sushi place.
It's a good way to get out of the closet for a lot of local musicians, actually.
Sounds like you're talking about like LGBT. Like,
Yeah.
We got to get out of the closet.
We got to get out there,
maybe
play
There's a
some,
we
lot
are.
of great musicians in the Valley and Campbell River.
you got to
They
play
just-
some music and suck some dick. It's just the way it goes.
If you don't include them, you're gonna offend somebody.
Yeah.
So we had to.
Local jams are a good way to get them out, though,
Yeah,
for sure.
we can talk shit. So regarding all of that, so you guys are in Courtenay today. Is
Yeah.
this the first time you've been in town to play music? Or
No, we've been here lots and
lots of
different.
time. How long have you guys been together?
Me and Lucas for about 6-7 months or something like that.
If that.
Since maybe June, but I had joined a project that Lucas had before, and then I joined it, then somebody else left, then we got more serious about it, and then we got rid of someone else, and we got Nate, and it's never been better.
Yeah.
And so it's only been a couple months with Nate, and he's killing it. It's
Yeah.
perfect. We found the 3 perfect people, and hopefully we're going to build and get a couple more. But right now we found the perfect 3 that we're really happy with.
It's quite something. This will be our first time playing here in this formation, right?
Yeah, it's Nate's first
So-
show with us.
Yes.
How you feeling, Nate?
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No worries, bro.
No, we got this. No.
No
We're-
worries, bro.
no,
You
we're-
ready, you punk?
We've been practicing lots.
Yeah, what we did is we wrote a whole set, taught him how to play it, and then privately we wrote another set, and we just didn't tell Nate about
Oh,
it.
good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
After this show, I know it's coming. They're just going to
just-
bombard me with
I'm a
there's a
drummer
whole bunch
too.
of other stuff.
All songs are the same for drummers. So you just got to be wary of the time.
We're kind of an odd band. We're an odd band that way. We kind of it seems like they should all be the same for drummers, and we make it really complicated to play.
Yeah, these dicks, they, oh, okay, there's the song. Okay, now try to do all these pauses and changes and bridges and endings and beginnings. Oh,
We're very specific. You can't just do a 4/4 rock beat with us. It just doesn't
We're
work.
a huge fan of endings and beginnings.
Oh, yeah? Wow, how clever of you. That's
know.
deep, man.
I thought of that just now.
You know what? It's better than having just the loop at the end, or the we'll finish it off with a jam. you know?
Or the fade out on the
Fade
recording.
out, yeah.
Oh my God.
I'm just a fan of just middles.
Just
I just
middle
do
the whole
middles.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just middles. I
Yeah.
never do beginnings or ends.
Yeah.
Call it in halfway.
Yeah. That's
Jump
funny.
in like we've been playing for a minute, and then just before we get to a part where it might end, fuck it.
Yeah. You know what? Speaking of the music scene thing, although Campbell River's scene is it's quieter than here or anywhere else down island, but it's been really supportive for me personally. I mean, like, it took me a long time to get out there and actually like sing in front of people or to learn to sing and play. I mean, I played for years before I considered any sort of performing, right? And I had a lot of really good friends who gave me the kick in the ass that I needed. And there were a lot of places in town that were very supportive. Even till now, it was wicked. Like, I wouldn't be as I mean, I'm not a pro, but I wouldn't be as confident as I am now if it wasn't for the support that I've seen. Really, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
Regardless of how quiet it is, it's been very, very friendly.
But we're super dedicated to doing original music. So
Yeah.
that changes things a little bit.
It's a tough game. The original. I only do really originals too, and I
Yeah.
don't care if it never gives me $1 million. I don't want to be doing REO Speedwagon covers for
It's kind of like
50-year-olds
pulling
on.
teeth after a while.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
we like taking those, though, and making them completely our own.
that's fine. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
what-
mean, like, I have a job. I don't need to make money playing music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fair. Yeah.
As do we.
How old are you guys? I'm 37.
He's
you
closest.
gonna start with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, these guys are my little brothers. I'm 33.
33,
Yeah, I'm 24.
24.
25.
So, how do you guys, the guys in their 20s, how do you guys get your music? Because you're 33, so you probably used to have CDs. You probably,
Oh yeah.
but then you're probably like trailing out of that.
Well, society makes you that way
Now it's
because you got
sometime
all
with
the
30-year-old.
it's all on your iPhone now.
Yeah.
iTunes and all that.
Those kids on
But
your lawn.
I'm still a fan of the CD, but yeah, these guys is different from them.
CD,
yeah.
We
maybe.
were
than
CDs
me.
when we were kids.
I love CDs. I love the physical, like having the physical copies of music. If I had the money, I'd go out and buy all my favorite albums right now. Like, I love it. I mean,
So how do you get your music then?
a mix of both for me. It's downloads, and I also order CDs.
Downloads from where?
iTunes for me.
iTunes, and you just pay the money,
Yeah,
and it gets on your phone, and then you're off to the races.
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can, I'll buy it on vinyl, and hopefully it comes with an MP3 download. Like,
Yeah,
it
that's nice.
might
Yeah,
be. Yeah, I know that it
Convenient.
drives me insane when you buy a record and you're just like, oh, no MP3 download, because you can't just put it in your computer and start listening to it. But that's my favorite way to do it if I can support an artist. Like, it's not like I haven't downloaded stuff for free, but I've also paid for things. But mostly if I'll download stuff for free, and if I can get their vinyls or everything, I'll support a band if I love them as much as I can, even if I only kind of like a band. But I definitely would say that I've, gotten some free music over the years.
Yeah.
Me too.
Likewise. I like the feeling of supporting bands, like, especially
Yeah.
if I am really passionate about the music. It feels good doing that because, like, they're working so fucking hard for it, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the physical stuff is cool. It's not just the music, but it's the art, it's the lyrics, it's just holding it. It's losing it and then finding it a few years later, going, "Oh my God, I haven't listened to this forever." Even if it's on your phone and you pass by it every day, right? It's just, it's a different feeling.
Yeah, mostly MP3s these days, but if I can turn my turntable on, that's the way to go. Just for when having people over and stuff. I know it's probably the classic thing for everyone to say is vinyl. But
Yeah,
I love it. My parents
I'm just
always had
curious to see how musicians, especially, are getting their music. So, have you guys published music?
it. No,
No?
not with this band.
How
no.
would you go the CD route, or would you go a different route?
I'd probably, I'm thinking CD, MP3s, and then if we can, press a vinyl.
Yeah, definitely like to dip into a few like that way. Yeah, definitely CDs or whatever run is
prefer
smart.
physical.
Physical, yeah.
If we could.
I would agree. Yeah, got to keep up the ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about because the thing with streaming, when I stream my music, I get 0.003 cents per stream.
Right, right.
I'm wondering about that.
I'm not a stream guy.
I'm not a stream guy.
I like to either have it on my phone or CD or whatever it is, or vinyl. Like, I don't like to stream. I have a lot of friends who love streaming. It's, for me, not knowing I have it whenever I want it is not good enough for me.
Yeah, it's me too, absolutely. I like the idea of having like a digital copy where I can go, I want this, and I hit the button, and then I listen to it. But this whole we've created an algorithm that you don't have to think anymore. I'm like, fuck you, I didn't ask for that.
Yeah, and what if you, I mean, it's never going to happen in this day and age, but take the internet away and we lose our music, I'm not interested. I want my stuff with me at any time I need it, kind of thing.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's how I always feel about it. People are like, I don't own anything. I just have all these streaming services. I'm like, cool, I guess. I would
weird.
stress me out.
I've tried it a couple times just to see, and I haven't liked it. I found the same thing. I like having it with me all the time. I don't like depending on the I don't like depending on the internet or having my phone.
Even though we do depend on the internet.
I know, it's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We became internet kids. Like we were probably the last of the generations to start out without it and then gain it. Like our whole world changed. But when I was a kid, we didn't have any of that stuff. And maybe that's because
How old were you when you first
had the internet.
Yeah, how old were you when you first got a bunch of MP3s and thought, wow?
I don't remember. I remember getting CDs all throughout my childhood. I don't know if we were just behind in the times with my family that we just continued with CDs for a long time. I remember getting internet, but I can't tell you what year it was. I couldn't remember. Like I was probably in late elementary school.
Late elementary school.
Something like that, grade 6 maybe.
Grade 6.
These guys probably don't even remember Napster.
I remember
Napster or LimeWire.
That's the only time I'm guilty of that is when I actually left my whole CD collection on top of my car and drove away.
Oh my god!
Like probably $1,000 worth of CDs or more.
Yeah.
Then I was guilty of streaming for a bit.
This is not my fault.
How did that happen?
Just
Idiocy.
stupidity, yeah.
You smok a big one and then drive away, or what?
Of course. Look where we live.
Look where you live.
CDs for everyone.
Yeah.
He was the music Santa that year. So many homeless people not looking at CDs.
Johnny CD seed.
I plant one here and I plant one here.
All right, so it's the Vogue Villains, and you guys are playing at the
Flying Canoe tonight.
Flying Canoe tonight.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a contact? Where can people find your music if they want to see it or hear it or get in contact with you?
We got a few things. God damn it. I'm trying to think. One's it's the Vogue Villains on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And then on Facebook there's just Vogue Villains, and we have a Twitter, and I think it's Vogue Villains.
Yeah. That's it for now. There's no no recorded files or anything up yet. It's just
live
social
videos,
media
though.
and live videos and
That's cool.
activity, right?
Yeah, you can definitely see stuff and get a vibe for how we are. We have a lot of our own private recordings of us jamming and stuff, which sound great and everything, but you don't want to put those out when they're not ready.
Yeah.
We'd love people to hear our music because we are very, very proud of what we have so far.
Right on. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you, man.
Thank
Good
you
luck
for
tonight.
having us. Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Have a good one.
I have an old friend.
back with KC Hingley. Those guys were nice.
Were they?
Yeah, nice guys.
Good. I'm glad. I told them to be behaved.
The Vogue Villains. So we actually were in Victoria at the same time, like 10 years ago now.
Yep.
If not for me, longer. We know Jay Dunphy.
Yes, we do.
And I played on his first couple of records.
Yep.
I was in his first band, the Moonshine Revelers.
Oh, of course. It goes back that far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you know Jay?
My I know Jay. We went to Camosun College together, and you know Jay and how he. Have you seen him lately?
I've only on the old Facebooks.
Oh well, he's a much different man now. But back then he was he had this long kind of oily hair,
Greasy,
and wore a trench coat, and he's not the tallest man of them all. And he smokes a lot of cigarettes. He used to smoke a lot of cigarettes. Doesn't smoke anymore. Amazing. Anyway, so
that's how I knew him.
Yeah, and I met this dude at school, Camosun College. I was about 19 years old, and he said, somehow we got onto music. He said, "Why don't you come over? Why don't you come over and play me some songs?" And ever since then, we've been good friends, and that is like getting on to be almost 20 years now that I've known him. He was recently up in the valley. Doesn't do music as much anymore, but he's married and happy and healthy, and that's great. Yeah. But the Moonshine Revelers, I love that band.
Thanks.
I love Dave Chenery still at
doing it. Yeah,
doing his thing, and boy, that guy's got a sound, like an original sound.
Yes, he does. Well, what kind of effect did Jay have on you as a songwriter or as a musician? Or
well, he was really encouraging, and when we used to go religiously to the open mics in Victoria, we would go down to Steamers, which is no longer there, unfortunately, the Monday night stage fright with Lee. And I think it's doing that one and the one at Logan's Pub, which I think used to be called Thursdays.
Yeah, it was called Thursdays.
Thursdays, and then it changed its name to Logan's.
That's done by Carolyn Mark, who does the Hootenanny.
She does the Sunday.
Did.
Yeah, I remember it being Clay George.
Oh yeah,
on the Thursday nights. But anyway, there was definitely a circuit, and that's where I learned to perform. I think, doing open mics and encouraged me as a young songwriter to continue coming up with new material. And I wrote more stuff back then than I do now. Yeah,
it's harder to write more songs. You have this capacity that drains pretty quickly.
Yeah, I occasionally something comes to me and I'll write something, but I enjoy performing, doing versions of other songs that have already been written that I know are going to work. It's really nice to step on stage and know something's going to work.
That's true. Jay's had a really good effect on me as well. As you said, very encouraging, but looking at his songwriting, like it can be simple but meaningful.
Yeah.
As well, and that can be original enough.
Oh yeah.
You don't necessarily need to be a virtuoso singer and guitar player to put together some songs that people enjoy hearing.
Yeah. And he had some good ones, some really good ones.
Yeah.
I think.
100 miles from home. All right. Cheers, Jay. Jay Dunphy.
Jay.
Finally, to wrap things up, we didn't talk about the Courtenay music scene or the Valley music scene. Is there a big difference between Comox and Courtenay, or Comox and Cumberland, or what kind of music is going on here?
Yeah, if you live around here, you tend to call it the Valley.
Okay.
The Comox Valley nowadays. I gather Cumberland, maybe when you used to live here, was a little bit separate and a little bit smaller, but it's really become kind of integrated, part of the same scene. There is a little bit more original music happening in Cumberland, I would have to say, at places like the Waverly Hotel.
What do you mean by original?
I mean music that isn't not there's a lot of cover bands playing around here on the weekends, but if you want to go see the current happening music from artists that are currently creating it, Vig, who does unfortunately his production company, Cumberland Village Works is his production company's name. He brings in really good acts, and he does a couple of festivals every year as well in Cumberland. So there's a pretty thriving scene for original stuff going on in Cumberland.
I heard Cumberland's turned into like an artist kind of retreat.
I think it's where I would go if I was, in my early mid 20s, and I was in the Valley and I wanted to create and have an audience. I think that's where I'd go. In Courtenay and Comox, well, there's nothing musically that I know of going on in Comox. A couple of the
pubs burnt down.
Burnt down sort of suspiciously over
That is weird.
Very close time frame,
Some
right
sort
before
of-
I got here.
Some sort of Puritan anti-booze conspiracy,
Yeah. So, but we've got
as far as I see it.
we've got open mics and music just about every night of the week. You can find something going on, and on the weekends, of course, there's the Whistle Stop. There's the High Tide Pub. The Mex sometimes has live music. The Mex has DJs as well. So there's lots going on. Like those guys. I don't know if you talked about the Campbell River music scene.
Yeah, a little
So
bit.
there's not that much of it, and they come down here to play. So there's a lot of guys making their living playing music. So it's a good place to be. In fact, I feel a little bit like my job is easier here as a musician than it was in Victoria, which is a bigger city. Maybe there's less competition, or maybe I'm just better positioned, but I feel like I can play about as much as I feel like.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
In Tokyo, you're just always scrambling, but you can be playing with the best and the worst players at the same time in the same night.
Oh, yeah.
It's really crazy.
Yeah. Nick Farraguna would come up as one of the better guitar players I've heard in my life as well. Totally different style from earlier. I mentioned Josh Shepanowski, and of course Anela and John. All of those guys, fantastic musicians. Nick is the guy that does the fast, synthy, everything. As soon as we found out he was moving to Japan, we thought, oh my God, you're going to go over like hotcakes there.
Yeah, he's done all right for himself. And he's also on the Jamcast, to those who are listening.
Yeah.
Look up the Jamcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Call in and ask him to play a solo.
He gets a featured
does
solo.
that.
He's going to do a solo whether you want him to or not. Anyways.
Well, hi, Nick. And of course, I run a music store, and at one point he was doing some modeling, and I was looking at Roland's newest drum kit. This was years ago. I was like, I think that's Nick Farraguna playing that drum kit. And yeah, sure enough, it was him that was modeling. So he's busy, and I wish him the best.
All right. Anything else to add, Mr. Casey Hingley? Where can people find you? Sorry.
You can find me. Easiest way if you wanted to listen to my music, what I'm proudest of, find that Men Against the Sea, 10 More Songs About Movies. It's a pretty good album, and critically ignored and misunderstood by the masses, but I'm the proudest of that. And otherwise, come to Courtenay and come to the Thursday night open mic, or you'll probably see me around somewhere else playing.
All right. Thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Matt. It's good. That was great.
Let's go to this open mic jam thing you got going on.
And have a drink.
Thank you for listening. Please check out the links in the show notes below, and don't forget to like and subscribe on any form of social media, just to help the word get spread out there. If you're listening by this point, you're a beautiful human being, and you've stuck it out to the end, and as a result, you'll probably be listening to that old familiar song like most people do. Thank you. Have a good week. See you next time.
アイドホのことは知らないけどアイドホポテトは食べるよみんな食べるからねアイドホ行ったら国立公園で月のクレーター見るんだみんな見てるからねボイシーの近くで何か食べに行こうみんな食べるからねみんな食べるからねホーチミンで会った女の子名前はセブンお気に入りの数字は11僕はいい気分セブンイレブンいい気分チャンビールチャンビールタイのチャンビールちゃんと酔っ払ったよみんな酔っ払おうからねそれであゆたや雪のチケット買って歩き回っても酔っ払ってたよみんな見てたけどねメコン川沿いに立って歴史の長さに感動だみんな気にしないけどねみんな気にしないけどねホーチミンで会った女の子名前はセブンお気に入りの数字は11僕はいい気分セブンイレブン 一歩南に行こう僕の目をまっすぐ見て国境の南に行こう国境の南に行こうみんないないところはいいねビゲローと同じビゲロー晩の宇宙バンガローに一部屋プリーズみんな行きたいでしょプロショの宇宙飛行士とスペースウォーカーパーティーだみんな飲みたいでしょ若者って展望室で地球を見たら地図で見たのと全然違うよみんなびっくりだよねねみんなびっくりみんなびっくりだよね
Falcon Pass.